are 16 years old. A man steps out of a Cadillac on your block. He doesn't say anything. Nobody does. The sidewalk clears anyway. His shoes are clean. Nobody in your neighborhood has clean shoes. The sidewalk does that. The job does that. The life does that. His shoes are clean, and you spend the next 30 years trying to understand why. This is the bottom, and there are 4 invisible steps above it. The social club has a back room. You are not in it. You are outside, on a folding chair, in a hallway that smells like cigarettes and floor wax. Your job is to fetch coffee, wash the Cadillac, and run to the deli on Mulberry Street for sandwiches before the card game starts. You are 17 years old, and you are free labor. The made men do not learn your name. You understand this is correct. Names are for people who have earned the right to be remembered, and you have earned nothing yet. The job right now is to listen and keep your mouth shut. Every time a mouth opens unnecessarily, something is subtracted. Not money, not rank, just possibility. You understand this without being told. 3 months in, a police cruiser rolls 2 blocks out. You warn the right person. Someone nods at you. That nod costs him nothing. To you, it is everything. You are now an associate. You work. Hijacked trucks out of JFK. A sports betting book in Queens. The money is real. But every Friday, an envelope leaves your hand and enters your sponsors. The week you steal $10,000, 3,000 of it is already spoken for. That number is not negotiable. It is not discussed. It is simply the shape of the arrangement. The FBI is watching because you are hungry, and that makes you visible. If they take you, the family sends nothing. No lawyer, no message, not even an acknowledgement that you exist. You do your time, you keep your mouth shut. That is the currency here, and it is the only currency that compounds. At this level, you carry all the risk and a fraction of the money. That is not a flaw in the arrangement. That is the arrangement. Three years in state prison. Not one name given, not one. You come home thinner, quieter. Someone tells you to dress well. You are going somewhere. The room is a basement or a back room. You will not remember which later. There are men you recognize sitting around a table. A picture of a saint, a gun. A needle pricks your trigger finger. Blood falls onto the image. The paper burns in your hands. Congratulations. You are made. From this moment, a civilian cannot touch you. An associate cannot touch you. Even a boss from another family cannot end you without permission from the commission. Your death now requires a vote. You have just received the most exclusive protection available to any human being in America. But you also have a crew now. Associates who work for you, who kick up to you, who exist to fill the envelope you carry upstairs every week. Money flows in one direction, always upward, without exception. When the boss decides someone needs to go. You take the bag, you handle it. There is no version of this world where refusal exists as a concept. The moment you became untouchable, you became something else entirely. You became the weapon they send. Protection and expendability are not opposites in this system. They are the same contract, written on both sides of the same piece of paper. It turns out you are good at something specific. When a debt won't move and the man behind it won't either, they send you, not as a threat, as a fact. That distinction matters enormously to the people who remain in that room after you leave. You know things the other soldiers don't. Which chemical plants have the right kind of vats? Which construction foundations are being poured on Tuesday morning? Which body of water is moving too fast to give anything back? You know these things the way a plumber knows pipe diameter, professionally, without feeling. The men in your crew do not invite you to sit with them after the work. They respect you with a particular quality of silence. The silence of people who need something and are uneasy about needing it. Most nights you eat alone. Then the captain gets indicted. He points at you across the table. You are now the acting capo, a substitute teacher with life and death authority. Envelopes must stay full for a man who is not here. Soldiers must stay in line, and it must be done under a constraint no one will ever explain out loud. Handle it too badly, and the captain is furious. Handle it too well, and the captain gets nervous. There is no version of this job that can be performed correctly. There is only the edge. The more essential you become, the more alone you are. Power and proximity are not the same thing. They move in opposite directions. And by the time you understand that, You are already too far from both doors to choose which one to walk back through. The acting title fades. You are the skipper now. 10 soldiers, hundreds of associates. A section of Brooklyn that belongs to you. The gambling, the construction sites, the union votes, all of it. You do not touch drugs. You do not touch guns. You manage people, which turns out to be harder than both. Every week you walk with your soldiers in parks and malls and parking structures. Envelopes change hands. Orders move in the other direction. You are a mid-level executive with a very specific termination policy. Disputes over a money split come to you. You hear both sides. You decide. Your word ends it. There is no appeal, no arbitration, no second opinion. But a number must be delivered to the boss. Every week. Without exception. Stop hitting that number and you are replaced. And in this business, replaced is not a personnel term. You learn to use the tools of the upper floors. You watch the messenger carry communications between families that cannot be written down or spoken on a phone. He prevents wars, negotiating solutions before anyone starts counting bullets. He travels quietly. He remembers everything. You watch the consigliere. He does not have a crew or a territory. He has the boss's ear. He is the only man in the entire structure permitted to tell the boss he is wrong, not because dissent is valued, but because the consigliere wants nothing the boss has. He poses no threat to the throne. He is a tool for it. The safest man in the building is the one with no ambition anyone can see. This machine does not run on loyalty. It runs on everyone being slightly more afraid of stopping than of continuing. Every man at this level has thought about walking away. Not one of them has. Not because the door is locked, but because they have spent so long inside that they no longer know what they would be on the other side of it. You are the underboss now, second in command. All the captains report to you. Master envelopes are collected. Disputes too large for captains and too consequential for the boss to touch find their way to your desk. You are also the insulation. When the federal government builds a case, they build it toward you first. You are the layer that keeps the boss's name off the indictment. That is not a side effect of your position. That is the position. You understood this clearly when you accepted it. Every captain in the organization is watching you, calculating, patient. You know this because you were one of them. The boss is a ghost. He does not appear in photographs. His name does not appear on documents. He touches nothing, not a dollar bill from a racket, not the phone that carries the order. He whispers to you. 3 days later, a man is no longer a man in any practical sense. The boss will not speak of it again. He does not need to. He sits at the head of the table. He has total power. He also has this: a closest friend who secretly wants the chair. A federal squad assigned exclusively to his name. He has not slept without an exit calculation since 1987. There is no retirement. The commission does not accept resignations. You stay until a hospital bed takes you, a prison sentence does, or the pavement outside a steakhouse on a quiet Tuesday does. You chose this. Every step of it. The coffee runs, the envelopes, the blood on the saint's picture, the bag you carried, the edge you walked. You chose it. The door was never locked from the outside. You just stopped being able to imagine what was on the other side. And now you step out of a Cadillac on a street in Brooklyn. Your shoes are clean. And somewhere nearby, a 16-year-old kid on the sidewalk is watching them, thinking the exact same thing you thought 30 years ago.